Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. We are back with a ton, literally, of news from the world of DC. There is so much to talk about today. We're going to talk about the Batman. We're going to talk about the Penguin. We're going to talk about the Authority, Clayface. I know you must be thinking, what about the Authority and Clayface? We'll talk about it. We're also going to talk about the new Superman Christopher Reeve story documentary premiere that happened a couple of days ago. We have some stuff to discuss from that. And of course, there was that Superman and Lois show coming up. So we had to talk about the premiere for that show. And if you clicked on the thumbnail, then you know that we're going to be talking about a certain potential candidate for Jon Stewart in the new DCU. So let's get into that. And to do that and so much more, of course, as always, I've got John with me. How are you doing today, John?
Outside of my computer going ape shit for no reason, I've been doing okay. My browser decided to go kaput, so I'm on a whole new browser right now. And then my EA app just went also kaput, but EA never has never really does anything of quality anymore, so that shouldn't be surprising. Anybody who's played like SimCity or The Sims for a good couple of years would tell you that EA is annoying, corrupt, and sacks of shit. So that shouldn't be surprising at all. But hopefully I'll get it fixed. But for right now, as long
You're
as I'm
preaching to the
here,
choir.
as long as I
That's
got
what
a
I'll say.
camera, a mic, and a browser that's working, then
Exactly.
by all means, it's fine.
That's all
It's
we
fine.
need.
It's fine.
Exactly. Well, John, let's get the ball rolling, and I'll just
Yeah.
start with the biggest story that we have got today, which is this isn't something that came out today. This rumor has been around for a little bit, but
Hmm.
we haven't really had a chance to address it because we were reviewing the Penguin last night. Which, speaking of, if you guys did watch the first episode of Penguin, we did a full spoilers review on it yesterday, so go check that out for the Penguin episode 1. And if you have any comments, if you have your thoughts, then drop those in the comments in that video, in this video. We're going to continue the conversation about the Penguin later, but let's start out by talking about Kelvin Harrison Jr. Kelvin
Hmm.
Harrison Jr. He's a relative unknown, I want to say, but he is somebody who's now being considered for the role of John Stewart in Lanterns. Of course,
Hmm.
this is coming from Daniel RPK, who is a bit of a hit and miss depending on, the particular rumor that you prescribe to it. Sometimes he gets it right, sometimes he doesn't. Of course, you see a few of his credits there. Elvis, I don't know if you pronounce that Lucci or
Chevalier,
Lucci.
I believe. I believe Chevalier
Chevalier.
is how you pronounce it. I
What
heard
about the
good
one
things
with the
about that
L?
movie.
Is it Lucy or is it Lucci? I can't tell if it's Luce how you pronounce it.
Right.
But there's three of his credits. You look at him and you look at the artwork for a younger John Stewart. It feels like a good fit to me, at least on the surface. I mean,
Yeah.
Elvis was a great movie. What do you think about Kelvin Harrison Jr.? He's certainly one of those guys. Because the other
Yeah.
thing is, right, Hal Jordan is meant to be this A-list actor, somebody we are going to all know about. John
Right.
Stewart is most likely going to be somebody a little more unknown. What do you think about Kelvin Harrison as a potential option or a candidate for the role of John Stewart?
Now I would on the surface, I was like, oh, I have no idea who this guy is. I know two of those movies and I haven't seen either of them. But then I looked him up and I was like, okay, so I've seen a couple things from him, like where he was like in very small roles, like he was in, 12 Years a Slave as like a small, like uncredited role. Same with, Ender's Game was another one. But then he was
I
also in
do
It Comes at
remember
Night.
him from Ender's Game. Yeah. Okay.
I remember him from It Comes at Night. He was pretty good in that. He was acting opposite Christopher Abbott and Joel Edgerton, and he did his own. Like he managed to hold his own against those two rather very good actors. And he was a relative like kid at the time. I don't know if it would be that it was about 8 years ago, and he would have been like 22. I don't know if that counts as kid, but like depends on the person. But then he was also in you know, um, Trial of the Chicago Seven, which was revered, and then Waves was another one that was. I've heard great things about that movie. I've heard great things about Chevalier, and um, he's going to be in the upcoming Mufasa the Lion King. which is probably going to sink, but it's fine. He plays young Scar, aka Taka, before he gets his scar.
Mhm.
Which fun fact means garbage in Swahili. So um yeah, Scar's parents were kind of assholes, but anyway. But yeah, so he's been in a lot of great movies, and he's been in some pretty damn good shows as well. And I think if they pick this actor, I think this is the perfect actor to pick. Like, in terms of like, okay, he's been in a lot of like really good stuff, but nothing that's like too highbrow, but shows that he was a leading man in a couple of different things in like more recent stuff. And so that shows that he can hold his own in like a leading piece, even though, because I mean, technically he is what at least has been described to us, he's the lead character. It's really about John Stewart. So that's definitely, I think, pretty good. Like, he's unknown enough where it's like, okay, obviously if you're getting someone like Ewan McGregor or Chris Pine as your Hal Jordan, then you could pick someone who's not as good, but he still has the talent to back it up. He's been in like many Academy Award nominated and winning films. So I think this is who I imagine that they want for the role. Like, this is kind of like the perfect package in a way, where it's like unknown, been in some really damn good movies, can hold his own as a leading man, and boom, and has like the look. I think he has like a good look. He kind of, because the thing is with Aaron Pierre, like, again, I've really warmed up to him, guys. Like, you guys have convinced me, not gonna lie. Like, good on you guys. But I think Aaron Pierre, he looks maybe a little bit too mature. This guy, yeah, shave the beard, shave the hair. I think he has like a very young, naive look to him, even though they are the same age. So I think, Aaron Pierre would still be very good. I'm not trying to downplay him, but I think Kelvin Harrison Jr. just kind of, I think, has more of what they want to, like, more of that naivete in terms of the Green Lantern aspect, but still can be mature in whether it's, because I know he's an architect and military man in the comics, so he's like, okay, I know this stuff, but then he can have the naivety, rookie hot-headedness that would come with the Green Lantern side. So I think this is who I imagine that the type of guy they're looking for. And I think, even if he's not the guy, even if Daniel RPK is, wrong about this, which, when it comes to rumor stuff, he, like, as you said, hit and miss. I think this is like being aware of actors like this, being aware of like guys like this who have been in a lot of smaller projects that are very good, but still relative unknown to the general audience, outside of like somebody be like, oh yeah, he was in that movie, right? He was in that Elvis movie, right? So yeah, I think this is kind of the perfect like storm of like
Yeah,
an actor, I think.
I
And I
mean,
think he would do a good job
you
if like this is like
yeah.
their, their Chris Pine, their Timothy Oliphant for John Stewart, then I would be like, okay, cool. Let's see what you can do, man. Let's go.
I mean, it's also what I was gonna ask is, given that he's playing like a young Scar, does he have like a deep voice? Do you think, like, because I, in my mind, imagine John Stewart having like
Deep
a
foreboding voice, like,
deeper foreboding.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because I go back to the
sexy
animated
sort
series.
of, hey girl, like, no, I'm just kidding, I'm
Not
just
exactly
kidding.
what I had
not
in mind,
not
but
like
sure.
that, but
Yeah.
he is doing a voice role for Taka, so he could be like playing up the voice of someone more. I don't remember, because the only other movie I saw him in like majorly was It Comes at Night, which was about 7 years ago. So, people still kind of grow a little bit, even not by much, even though there's little in terms of 23 to 30. But maybe he like grew into his own, maybe a little bit. From what I remember of It Comes at Night, it was a decent movie. It was one of those movies that was just horribly marketed. Um, but I remember liking aspects of it, and I remember him being pretty good as sort of like this like scared kind of kid kind of character. And I don't remember his voice. So I remember it was like a typical sort of, at the like a 20 something year old voice of like, I don't know, relatively normal. Nothing, it's not like a Tony Todd where it's like, oh yeah, that's a memorable voice. I think it was just like relatively normal. I don't think he has like a super duper deep voice or anything like that. From what little I remember, that is. I know that's not helpful, but you know,
No, I mean, but
sorry
it's okay.
guys.
So it's fair. But let me then ask you this question. So do you think that he could play this role for like 10, 15 years? Can he grow into the role and eventually become a legendary Lantern himself? Because obviously
Oh
Hal
yeah.
Jordan's going to be introduced as that legend of the Green Lantern Corps,
I
and John Stewart is
I
somebody who's a
definitely
little
think
bit
so.
younger. Yeah.
Because two major roles where he's played a real life person, um, Chevalier, where I'm gonna butcher this. I think it's a French name, Joseph Boulogne Chevalier de Saint Georges. So he played the real guy in that movie, and then he played BB King in Elvis. So both of those are pretty legendary people. BB King, obviously, more people know who BB King is because, he was a legend from, a couple decades back. And so we know him. But he also played like this legendary, like musical prodigy character, because that's who he was. And so, yeah, so I think because I think my friend watched this and he really liked it. I think he really liked him too. Um, so I do think that someone who can like handle like people like that, like generally legendary people, I think he can grow into that role most
Yeah.
definitely as someone who, John Stewart just becomes maybe not quite as legendary as Hal Jordan, but up there. He is technically, for a lot of people in the mid 2000s, he was the most popular Green Lantern because it's part of
Dude, I
the
grew up
animated
with John
series.
Stewart
So,
as my yeah, exactly. For the same that's the Lantern that I remember
yeah.
from the animated series. So okay, let's just assume that he gets cast for the role. Which again, it's a rumor that he's even being considered. So take it with a grain of salt. But and it seems like he would be a good fit, obviously. But who do you think would be a good match to play opposite him as Hal Jordan?
Timothy, 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 Oliphant, No, I'm just, but like that's who I think. I think either one of them, all three of them would be really good in terms of the short list. Timothy Oliphant, I could see. Ewan McGregor, I could probably see the most with this actor. Like I don't know why, but something about him, I don't know, just I feel like fits the best with Ewan McGregor. I don't know why. It's just like I see Timothy Oliphant, I see Chris Brown. I'm like, okay, they would be. I think all three of them would be excellent. Obviously, that's a whole nother thing of just saying that than actually watching the chemistry unfold on screen. But I don't know, like, even though Ewan McGregor is probably my least favorite out of the three to helm Hal Jordan, I don't know, just maybe because he worked with Joel Edgerton and Joel Edgerton played Uncle Owen in the prequels.
Right.
Maybe I'm just seeing that connection and that's like kind of in my head. So maybe it's something like that. I don't know. Just like I feel like it kind of works. Ewan McGregor kind of works. Just I can't explain it. Just works there and ew, gross. No, get that fucking twink out of here. Fuck Timothy Chalamet. I'm just kidding. I don't mind Timothy Chalamet. But I think Ewan McGregor,
Yeah.
Ewan McGregor would fit the best with Kelvin Harrison Jr. I think. Um,
Honka
Hi,
honka.
Josh.
Yeah,
Hello,
just the whole
Josh.
from the Jared Leto Joker, like at least that's his one contribution to the world of DC.
I prefer Jared Leto.
Yeah. Don't we all prefer Jared
No,
Leto?
we don't.
Um,
We don't. We don't. The fucking OnStar joke commercials with Batman and Joker was better than fucking Jared Leto. All right, get that fucking
Dude,
out of
okay.
here.
I will say though, like looking at this picture, this particular picture of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, I'm like, there's something about if you just picture him, that's his, street garb as Hal Jordan, the legendary Hal Jordan who just then powers
I
up.
think he needs to lose the shoulder length there. You know what would be good if like he had that level of beard, but the haircut from Revenge of the Sith. I think that fit maybe a little bit more mangly than like the
Mm,
well coiffed kind of look to it. But I don't know the
yeah,
shoulder length hair. I can't buy that for Hal Jordan, but like the very trim because he had a very long beard in Revenge of the
right.
Sith, which I mean he was trying to mimic Alec Guinness, and so I
Yeah,
think the trimmed beard here and then like this and then like the shorter hair. I think that would fit a little bit better. And
yeah.
as I said, even though Ewan McGregor is probably my least favorite out of the three that we have now, I don't think he would be bad. I think Timothy Oliphant would be 10 out of 10, Chris Pine 10 out of 10. I think he would be like a 9 out of 10, like eight and a half or a 9 out of 10. Like 9 out of 10, that's still a fucking A. It might be an A minus, but it's still an A. So I think
Dude,
that's
it's about as close to perfect as you can get without getting
yeah.
perfect.
Not
So,
it would be like 8.59. So like I think
yeah,
Ewan McGregor could do it. And something about him, I see him with Kelvin Harrison Jr. Like something about
yeah,
that, like I see them together, like tearing
it could
ass
work.
and
It
taking
could work.
names and
Yeah.
fucking
And you
bitches
can
up.
transition them smoothly from the TV show to the movies, and
Hmm.
regardless of whether the Hal Jordan character sticks around or not. I mean, I think this would be a great pick. Like, guys, let us know in the chat what you think. Do you have any other ideas, any other names in mind? You have, of course, talked about many names in the past. Aaron Pierre seems to be like the leading contender amongst the fans. You've got, of course, alongside Aaron Pierre,
Damon
John David
Idris,
Washington, David
John David
Idris.
Washington as well.
So, you've got a few names, but like, Calvin Harrison Jr., a new name sort of thrown in the mix.
Hmm.
And just again, kind of talking about where this comes from, Daniel RPK kind of put out a
Right.
rumor, as it were, kind of reporting that, hey, Calvin Harrison Jr. is being considered for this role, or he's one name being considered. It could be one of many. They could have a
Yeah,
short
one of
list
many,
for this
right.
character too. So, yeah, I mean, and he's got a decent resume. He has the look. He has the voice. He doesn't have the damage tattoo, as Morkatna mentioned. Um, and I think he can, be in the role for a long time, which would be perfect. Like you cast somebody who can grow into that character over the course of hopefully a couple of decades, if not longer. So, yeah, and I think also if you go down the road of the like in the animated series with Green Lantern, like John Stewart's Green Lantern and Hawkgirl having a romance and then ending up having a kid together. Then I mean Isabella Merced and Calvin Harrison Jr. I can see that. I can
Hmm.
see that combination, like in terms of like the screen chemistry and like they would not that they need to be the same age or anything like that, but it just I think it would work well potentially. Um, it's a little CWE for now, but like I don't know, like that's not something they have to tackle at all if they do, maybe in the distant future. But let us know in the comments, guys, what you think about the idea of Calvin Harrison as John Stewart.
Hmm.
Now, we will get back to this. I'm sure you guys will have more ideas for us and you'll bring your comments in and we'll continue the conversation around Green Lantern. They are still working on this show. They're hopefully working on casting about as fast as they can so that they can get into production because production it's 2025 is coming up real fast. So and I believe they have a time schedule that they want to get this thing on set and get the cameras rolling by next year. So it's September, guys. It's almost
Hmm.
October. Joker 2 is almost here. So but speaking of Joker, the Penguin,
Yes.
another member of the Rogues Gallery from Batman, James Gunn, recently mentioned that he loves the show because they asked him like, "Hey, are you watching? How much are you involved with this?" And of course, you guys have been watching the show. The episode, the series premiere yesterday for episode 1. We reviewed it here on DC Daily. So if you guys are checking in now and you didn't check out the review from yesterday, after the show today, go check back and we did all the spoiler talk. We got into all the nitty gritty of it. It was full of spoilers. So again, if you haven't seen it yet, then don't click on that review. But if you have, then go watch the Penguin review from yesterday. And we kind of dove into again just the brilliant storytelling and just the psyche of the Penguin. Was they made it so good. Like they really nailed just who this character is, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved every moment of it. You know, Fiona, look, guys, DC knows we're the right place for this. They even playing Penguin ads before the show, so you know you're in the right place. You're in the right place. Check out their review. But let's talk about what James Gunn said, John. So James Gunn recently was asked, as I mentioned, that hey, what is your level of involvement with the Penguin? And he basically said we have been involved since they first started shooting. So of course, by the time James Gunn and Peter Safran sort of entered the fold with DC Studios, the Batman was already up and running as a project. So they've sort of, come on, and of course, they've been working on their own DCU plans. So
Mm-hmm.
they probably hopped in and said, all right, well, we'll keep an eye on it. If you have any notes and ideas, we'll pass this along. So yeah, I mean, and basically that's what James Gunn said. We've been involved since they first started shooting, some of which has been giving our 2 cents to help make it better, but most of which has been getting out of the way and letting Matt Reeves and company do their thing. So that looks like a ringing endorsement to me. James Gunn says that, hey, man, they love what the team over with Matt Reeves and company are doing, and they're just mostly keeping out of the way, and where they can and where they feel like they need to, they're giving a bit of their opinion, and that's about it. And I feel like that's the kind of hands-off approach that works here, because Matt Reeves has got a very specific vision for this franchise, this universe that he's creating, and you can't micromanage it. Kind of like, you can't do what the previous Warner Brothers regime did to somebody like a Zack Snyder, who's an auteur in his own right, and I think Matt Reeves is the same. He has a very
Yeah.
specific vision. He talked about it in an interview recently. We're going to get into that as well. And he really connected with this franchise because he's turned down other franchise opportunities after the Planet of the Apes movies, and he took on the Batman because he's like, I can relate to it, I can connect to this, and I can find my way through as a storyteller. So for James Gunn to be like, we're gonna let Matt Reeves do his thing, because of course the first movie made almost $800 million, so why would you not? What are your thoughts on the approach James Gunn is taking here with an Elseworld project, one of two right now between the Joker series and the Batman series, that are really holding down the fort, while the cinematic universe aspect of
Mm-hmm.
DC is sort of like trying to get revved up again after the previous one crashed and burned.
Right. I do kind of agree with it. But it's also like, of course, he's not gonna say it sucks. Like, that's kind of what we always say. It's like, yeah, it was just, oh yeah, show fucking blows. I watched it. It's terrible. Don't watch it. Like, of course, he's not gonna say that. But I think, yeah, we're just kind of tiding this over like a lot of different aspects. You have you have the beginnings of the epic crime saga. You have the end of the Arrowverse. You have, and then some animated projects here and there, and then you finally get that big opener to the DCU. So I think, as well as an Elseworld story with Joker. So I think, we're on the track to getting good stuff. I think we kind of got everything, like a little bit for everyone. Like, you got like a good Superman like ending with, Superman and Lois, and then you have, the gritty, like grounded feel of the Penguin, and then you're getting, if you actually like it, you're getting the more humorous side with Harley Quinn, and then you're getting like the James Gunn humorous edge with Creature Commando. So I think we're getting a little bit of everything for everyone, and I'm excited for that. And I think James Gunn is like properly like, Matt Reeves, you're doing your thing. I think that's the best way to deal with it.
Exactly,
So
I
good on
agree.
him for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the idea that, they're not interfering. They're not saying, hey, you got to do things this way. You can't use that character. Obviously, there's maybe some conversations on that level happening, that they don't want to necessarily double up on, say, they just did the Riddler in the Batman, so
Hmm.
they wouldn't necessarily want to do it again in Batman Brave and the Bold, or whatever the next Batman movie might be after that. So there's probably some of those conversations, but overall, as far as like the creative visions and like what these two universes look like, I like that James Gunn is like, I'm gonna do my thing, and then we are here if you need our help, and we'll give you some feedback if you want it, but do your thing, because you know what you're doing, and we trust you. And I really like that approach. And I'm sure like James Gunn, he's good at leading the charge and kind of giving his 2 cents when he feels like he needs to do that. And I'm sure Matt Reeves would listen to him, and I'm sure that's a good collaboration. From day one, James Gunn has said they love what Matt Reeves has been doing, and it seems like that continues. Now, quickly turning back to the Green Lantern topic, I think Morkatna had a question. Let me see if I can put this up here. Did I not? Let me. I think he was asking, would you want Jack Reacher? And I'm not talking about Tom Cruise, not the Tom Cruise Jack Reacher, but would you want Alan Ritson to potentially play Hal Jordan?
No. I think he would be a good guy. He would be an excellent Guy Gardner. He would have been so fucking excellent as Guy Gardner, not as Hal Jordan. No, definitely not. He's too big. Guy Gardner is like this big, like fucking, football player kind of guy. And, like going back to his days in Blue Mountain State, I think that kind of personality would be perfect for Guy. Like I remember I was doing a fan casting way back when, and I had Alan Ritchson as Guy Gardner. He could be a fantastic Guy Gardner. I don't think he's right for Hal. I don't think he's right for Batman. I mean, I think he needs to play another character to make me like to really impress me in terms of like his range, because the only things that we've like seen from him is either like funny guy or like stone cold kind of military guy, and those aren't who I see for Batman, especially if this version of Batman is more, well, he already played Aquaman, so been there, done that. And so I think
in the Titans show, that is, for a lot of people, they might be like, where? Like there was a Teen Titans live action show.
He was Hawk there, but yeah, he was Hawk in Titans, and then he was Aquaman in Smallville. So
yeah.
So yeah, I think
Blue Mountain State. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Going back, going real back.
Going way back, yeah.
But yeah, I think like he needs to show his range a little bit more if he has any, but I don't think he has the range to be like, I know Batman, as I've said many times before, he's not like this grand fucking like oh my god, you need the best actor for the role. I just think you need someone who can like actually carry, Bruce Wayne and Batman, like, and I don't think Alan Ritchson can do that. And I don't think he would. It's just I can see Hal Jordan a little bit more than Batman, but I think if we're talking like Green Lantern, he would be really good as Guy Gardner. I think he would have been really good as that.
Hey, maybe it could be a parallel universe Guy Gardner.
Maybe.
Or maybe he could play like Lobo, and then people will be really pissed because like, no, he's not Lobo. Like, like make him Aquaman. Chris would be like, make him Aquaman and make Aquaman Lobo. Anyway, I mean, he's certainly said it. He's like, I'll shout it off the rooftops. I want to play Batman. Like, he's one of the actors who's been campaigning for the role. Well, we'll see though. I mean, whether it's as Hal Jordan or another character in the DCU, Alan Ritchson probably will end up in the DCU eventually because he's looking for a franchise opportunity. And I'm not saying Marvel isn't looking for him, but he seems interested in Batman, so I bet you he probably has other characters in mind he could probably also play. So we'll see. Maybe he could be he might be the most menacing Bane you'll ever see. Can you imagine that? Oh, he was Thad in Blue Mountain State. Sorry, Ray J. I forgot his name of his character. It's a long time ago.
I never watched it, but I've seen like clips. I saw that famous clip like where he like fills with the condom.
Oh yeah, no, that goes viral like all the. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Chris, on the other hand, would love to see Alan Ritchson as Batman.
Yeah, so. You and every other fuckwad on the internet, like, you're not special. Get the fuck
down.
No, I'm just kidding. It's just like, John. Of course, Batman. Yeah. Next, I want to see Kelsey Grammer as Batman. Like, all right, yeah.
Weird maybe choice. In 1975 that would have worked. Not 2024.
Maybe. I don't know. I can't see him for Batman. I mean, he was so
actually,
good.
Kelsey Grammer is not that old. Maybe like 1995. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on. We're gonna get into some Superman news, and I'm not just talking about Superman, the movie coming out next year. I'm talking about the man who made you believe that man can fly. Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, premiered a couple of days ago, and it brought out the stars. in New York City, John. So we
Mm-hmm.
have so many photos from this. Like it's amazing to me that all the people that showed up to this, and it just
Yeah.
really goes to show you
Oh,
how much this
so many.
means to DC. This is the first official anything released under the DC Studios banner, and it couldn't be anything any more foundational and heartwarming and essential or quintessential than a documentary about Christopher Reeve, who put DC on film on the map,
Yeah,
right? It
exactly.
just feels right. And James Gunn, of course, mentioned, talking about the fact that him and Peter Safran made the trip out to New York and they had a fantastic time. The Reeve family were there. You had David Cornsweet, the current Superman, show up. Of course, Will Reeve, one of the sons of Christopher Reeve, he's gonna be cameoing in the new Superman movie. He works for ABC
Mm-hmm.
News, so he probably lives out in New York anyway. And of course, he posted a bunch of photos here. I mean, these look fantastic. It's just great to see again. You're getting a Superman. You've got the two CEOs of DC. You get Will Reeve right there. There's other pictures we're gonna get into as well. What are your thoughts on, again, just the idea that this becomes now the first project that DC Studios puts out in the world? Granted, they didn't really produce this themselves, but they did, take on all the responsibility for marketing this thing now. They're taking under their umbrella. And of course, the filmmakers who made this documentary, hopefully they're opening new doors for them now that they have this platform. And the story they're telling here, of course, is a story worth telling. You see all
Mm-hmm.
three of Christopher Reeve's kids there. You see Peter Safran and James Gunn. You see the two filmmakers on the far corners of the image. What does this mean to you? The fact that this movie has been getting such a big platform. Otherwise, this might have just been something that, came out on a streaming service or something like that, where you
Yeah.
wouldn't have
It
really
like
known
no
about
matter
it.
what would have happened, they would have dedicated a lot to this because it's too big
Yeah.
of a story. It's a popular, it was an activist. He was like, the most popular version of this character, and a lot of people love him. And seeing a side to him that not a lot of people see, which was kind of the basis of the documentary. It's like, oh yeah, we saw him as Superman, but nobody saw him as a Superman, despite this thing
Yeah.
that happened to him. So I feel like that's definitely you know very important, and I think they all kind of recognize that, and they want to like show that. And I think I mean these images are really nice. Like I think the premiere is, you got a Superman, and you got coming in, and you got Superman's children and all that, and I think that's really cool. It's really cool. It's really nice, wholesome in a way, like just coming together and just enjoying the legacy of this man who is unfortunately no longer with us. So I think that's pretty damn great in my eyes. And I still gotta ask people. I'm like, hey, do you want to see this movie? Because I'm ready to buy my tickets for next Wednesday. I definitely want to see this real badly. It looks damn good.
Yeah,
It'll
it's
be an
also
emotional roller coaster, but it'll be damn good, I feel.
yeah, dude, I can't wait for this, but also I wanted to mention that in the whole past 20 odd years, right? The Reeves family hadn't really been closely integrated with the franchise of Superman, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really have a situation where, like, whether it was Christopher Reeve. I mean, of course, in Smallville he made a cameo,
Mm-hmm.
and they paid homage to him in a way with the Flash, but really, it was all animated, even though they had permission from the family. But it always felt like they were on the periphery, right? Like, and Christopher Reeve did so much work on behalf of DC, on behalf of he basically in a lot of people's minds is still the definitive Superman, as he should
Mm-hmm.
be. So I just love that. Whereas he wasn't, his family weren't that closely involved with the world of DC on film. James Gunn is finally bringing them into the fold, and they're really, they were on set. James Gunn has been talking to them. Of course, then they were at the premiere, and I'm sure there's other opportunities to collaborate down the road for them. And it's just fantastic. Again, just James Gunn is showing us that he's a great ambassador for the brand of DC, not just a great filmmaker and storyteller. And that's something. It's kind of like, well, was it Bill Finger right?
Yes.
Who finally got recognition, and was it Batman v Superman as
Hmm.
like the co-creator of Batman alongside Bob Kane for the first time. I feel like this is like that, but even more so, they're righting the wrongs of the past, and it's again just mending bridges, and it's just fantastic to me that James Gunn is able to do this, and using his position to promote not just the movies and stories that they're trying to tell in the years to come,
Right.
but also to again give more reverence to the stories that have laid the groundwork for the new DCU to even exist. So I really love that. I love the idea of
Hmm.
them being involved, the Reeves family, and the documentary itself. Just the trailer couldn't be any better. It's like every time I've watched it multiple times, and it does not lose its effect on you.
Oh
It
yeah.
captures your imagination. It just shows you again the type of man that Christopher Reeve was. And yeah, I mean, Josh says I'll probably rewatch a Christopher Reeve Superman movie. You should watch the movie, then go
It's
watch the
on Max.
documentary. Yeah, yep. And Josh, I think, has probably the comment of the day so far. Let me put that up here, which I think is nothing that we wouldn't expect. But yeah, he says I have a feeling that James Gunn's Superman will be a love letter to the character and Christopher Reeves, which I do believe is
But not too
exactly what we're
much.
gonna get.
I
I
still
think
think
he's
going
yeah,
too far into the Christopher Reeve world, I don't think it should get so much. It still needs to stand on its own 2 feet, because then you're
yeah,
gonna have so many people coming out. Oh, it's just discount Christopher Reeve. They're just playing it too safe. No, 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 no.
yeah,
So I hope they don't go too far with that. Just like a little bit, like you have Will Reeve in there, like you kind of have that, like maybe a little bit like some of the characters like Tessmacher and Otis and all that. So just go a little bit, but not too far. That's
yeah.
all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I think James Gunn has mentioned this in the past when it's been brought up that this new movie is going to honor what has come before, but at the same time chart a course forward, a path forward that is unique and for the time that we live in today. It's not meant to be just like this is not there's a reason why it's now called Superman, not Superman Legacy, because the movie is not it's going to be definitive in its own right. It's meant to sort of take the character Superman and move it into the present day and how we want to think about it moving forward in this new century, because Christopher Reeve Superman was fantastic for its time, and it will
Hmm.
forever live on as one of the most iconic characters in all of cinematic history. But I think the Superman for today that audiences want is maybe the one, hopefully, that James Gunn will give us. With
Hmm.
that said, though, James Gunn also was in New York for another premiere. He wasn't just there for the Superman premiere. He also was there with Peter Safran for the Penguin premiere. So John,
Yes.
let's just rounding up James Gunn's week in New York.
Just
It
like
just looks
firing
amazing
on all
again.
cylinders.
The show of support, like it's just the fact that the two CEOs are there, they're making their presence known, and that in and of itself is a ringing endorsement for the show
Hmm.
itself. That's saying not only do we love this, we are behind this thing 100%. Let these guys cook, right? Let Matt Reeves and Dylan Clark and Lon LaFranc and Colin Farrell, Kristen Milioti, let these people cook. Let them do their best work, and we are behind them. We support them, and this is it's now being called an HBO original. It was originally a Max original, so regardless of whether you watch The Penguin on HBO or you watch it on streamed it on Max, you've just got a fantastic show, which I think so far, just off episode one alone, is probably one of the best comic book shows I've ever seen. And if anything, I can tell you for sure this is the best first episode of a comic book show I've ever seen. The Penguin, it was just amazing. Josh is like Snyder fans in tears right now, dude. I love Man of Steel, but I can still look forward to the new David
And
Cornswell Superman.
remember, we
Yeah,
don't hate Snyder fans here. We hate Snyder
yeah,
cultists. There's a
yep,
difference. Remember, there is a difference. Just saying.
yeah,
Snyder fans can be cool. They can have a discussion like, I like Zack Snyder, but like, I'm also open to this shit.
yep,
However, Snyder cultists are just, ready to bend their asses to Zack Snyder's gigantic zaddy dong and will, be on their knees days and nights, praying to the God Daddy Snyder and offering their firstborn son to the God Snyder and all that fun shit because he can do no wrong, even though Sucker Punch and both Rebel Moons exist. But that's neither here nor there.
Dude, hashtag Zaddy Dong. Is that the hashtag that we're gonna promote
Oh
today?
yeah, that's definitely
That's the yeah.
hashtag restore the Snyderverse. Hashtag Zaddy Dong. Hashtag on my knees for Zaddy.
Bring the Snyderverse back, Daddy's ass love. God.
Ew.
Josh just with the comments. By the way, Lucario Trainer, yes, the Penguin. Oh my god, what a pilot that is! It just in one episode gave me every reason to be as excited as I've ever been for this
Yeah.
franchise. Now, the Penguin
It's
exists.
setting, like setting the seeds, bearing the seeds for like, the mighty tree that will grow into what is the Penguin miniseries. It's like it sowed the seeds very well, most definitely. And I don't want to get into it too much because one, we already talked about, and two, there's still a couple of people that have not watched it yet, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But yes, I would say The Penguin is worth watching. I thought it was very well done. I don't think it was like a perfect masterpiece or anything. It was a little bit slow in the first half, but like overall, I think like Matt Reeves gets the Penguin, or at least Lauren Frank gets the Penguin. I thought Kristen Milioti was very good. Even the smaller, and then Fenzi something or something Fenzi.
Oh, Renzi Feliz.
Renzi
Renzi
Feliz, that
Feliz
was it.
plays Victor Aguilar
I can
in the
never
show.
remember that guy's name. Renzi Feliz. He was in the Runaways.
Yeah.
But yeah, as Aguilar was also really good. I think he had good chemistry with Colin Farrell, who of course was still excellent here. So yeah, I think that's definitely. It sucks how we gotta wait like a little bit more than a week for the next episode. Kind of
Yeah, I
lame,
mean,
but
it's 10 days. Like, we can, I mean, a lot of our viewers might not have even seen it yet. Like, a lot of you guys like popped in the chat yesterday and you were like, whoa, haven't seen it. I'm gonna see myself out. I'll come back and comment later. And we have some of your
yes,
comments. So we will get into those on Monday, but we just want to give people a little more time to catch on before we get into more spoilers on these other shows. We, of course, have
exactly.
yesterday's shows. You click on yesterday's show knowing there's spoilers. You click on today's show, we're not getting into the spoilers yet. We're gonna do that on Monday. We're gonna get back into that on Monday. Ray J, by the way, saying if Lanterns is anywhere near the quality of the Penguin, because they are both HBO shows, then
Yes, but
DC
one
is
has
gonna be
Tom
on
King,
top.
so it's not going to be. Just saying.
And Lucario Trainer saying Penguin got his sidekick before Batman. LOL. You mentioned something about that, about how they set that up, and
Yeah.
again, no spoilers, but we will talk about it on Monday. We did get into it yesterday, though, talking about how there's some similarities between Penguin and his sidekick, and the typical Batman and Jason Todd origin story. So yeah, Oscog.
I think it would have
Dude,
been
I
funny.
didn't.
It would
Yeah.
have been really funny if like Renzi Feliz's character was named like Christopher or Chris, or like his last name was
Uh,
O'Donnell. I'm like, okay, that would
yep.
have been a nice, funny winking. I know that would have been like too much because God forbid if you have too many like winks and nods to something that's not grounded enough, guys. So they can't do that. But I think that would have been funny. And that's
Yeah.
not happening, right, Jay? I'm sorry. That's not happening. When you got the guy who ruined Lost and the guy who ruins every DC book he's a part of, you can't. Sorry.
I mean, look, but regardless of where they go with the Lantern show, I already can't wait to see more of this Penguin, more of the Victor Aguilar character and how that chemistry is. It just, yeah, that duo I think is going to be at the focal point of the story based on how things kicked off in yesterday's episode. So again, if you guys haven't already seen us, mention it 500 times, check out our review about of Penguin episode 1 from yesterday. And we will get into spoilers again next week with your comments and your thoughts, because we have your reviews saved up, and we're going to do a full, long, full of spoilers conversation. But yesterday we did like a shorter review and just dove into all the spoilerly details. To click on that, but be forewarned that it has spoilers. Now, let's talk about a little bit of what Matt Reeves has been up to. Remember, I mentioned earlier in the show that Matt Reeves has there's some inspiration that he's got, and he's been talking about like what is the future of this universe and how he connected to this franchise versus other franchises he's been offered to work on, because after the Planet of the Apes trilogy, he really didn't take on any other IP. You'd imagine studios were like, hey, there's a bunch of other franchises we have. You want to take those on? I mean, he did the Cloverfield movies, but then Batman comes his way and he's like, you know what? I can connect to this because I can turn this into something we can relate to. I can ground these characters in a way that allows him to tell the stories he wants to tell. So this article, now this is an interview in the Esquire, and it's a long article. You guys can search for it, but he talks about his own career there, the early beginnings, the Planet of the Apes trilogy, how he got to work on the Batman, his childhood friendship with J.J. Abrams, and his how he looked up to Steven Spielberg. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to skip past all of that, and let's get into the inspiration for the Batman Part 2. In fact, actually, before we even get that far, let's talk about how he created the show in the first place for OzCop, because I think there's a couple of really juicy details in here that we should get into, because it gives us some idea as to where they might be headed next. So I'm going to highlight a couple of things here, and then let's dive into this, right? So apparently, when they were gonna do they weren't even gonna do the Penguin as a show. They were just gonna give the Penguin a bigger role in the Batman 2. And what happened is Casey Bloys and Sarah Aubrey, who are the co-CEOs of HBO, they were like, hey, look, I just want to say, I hope you're not going to save the marquee characters for just the movies. This is HBO after all. And so, Matt Reeves is like, okay, well, let me tell you this Scarface-esque story. And again, we've made that comparison already, that it feels like the Penguin feels like the story of Scarface. And so clearly Matt Reeves is on the same page there. But then if you continue to go on here, it says he basically, Matt Reeves, this is Matt Reeves saying this, it isn't his origin story. It's sort of like Batman's story, the way that I did it, as in Matt Reeves, because there had been so many origin tales. It's the early days. It's the origins of all the Rogues Gallery characters. That right there, to me, is the sentence that I want to focus on. It's the origin of all the Rogues Gallery characters, because in the comics, those characters make themselves really in reaction to the arrival of the Batman's presence, this mass vigilante. So this is almost like a gangster movie. The idea was to see Oz reach for power in this moment, in this power vacuum. So let me ask you this: does this mean that we're gonna get other rogues from the Batman Rogues Gallery, and then maybe they'll get their own TV shows, like these origins of all of the Rogues Gallery characters? What does that mean?
I mean, I believe it was Matt Reeves or Dylan Clark already said that they want to do a Catwoman show with Zoe Kravitz reprising her role, so that's not too out there. I think a Harvey Dent show could work, like maybe before he becomes Two-Face. It's just like, I could see like them like, oh, we all get like an origin. It might be a little bit much, but I think it could work depending. And I think it could be an intriguing idea. I just wish, it wasn't just like, oh, we're just gonna do a trilogy. It's just like, nah, fuck that. I want to see like 10 movies. 10 fucking movies with Robert Pattinson as Batman. Fuck it. Let's go right now. I would love to see a Condiment King show. I'm just saying, like, that would be pretty. I mean, Robert Pattinson has said he wants to see Condiment King, so I wouldn't mind seeing Condiment King. I'm just saying, but whatever they have in mind, I think it should be a good time, even with the dumb name, as Josh said. But it can go like, yeah, the Penguin might be good so far, but let's just like wait before we're like really jumping ahead into like, okay, let's plan the next 15 fucking spinoffs, the next 10 movies. Like, let's just take this one step at a time. We got a pretty good movie. We're getting what seems like to be a good show, and then we're getting, maybe another spinoff. But let's just take it one day at a time, one step at a time, because I don't want them to like fucking blow their load. Like, and it's just like, oh, it's just like everything no, just don't do everything at once, and just let yourselves not less necessarily cook, but boil the water before you cook anything. Turn the stove. Don't even boil the water. Turn the stove on. Okay. Let's just have them turn the stove on at like right now. It's like at a medium low heat. It's getting there. It's getting hotter, but just leave the stove on for a little bit. That's all.
Yeah. Oh, we got five. We got Fabian Diaz Gutierrez, restore the Snyderverse hashtag in the comments. Hello to Fabian. I mean, look, if they can do a restore the Snyderverse in a way that it doesn't clash with the DCU, I would be for it. Like, I wouldn't mind that story. But anyway, talking about the Penguin, there's a reason why Batman sits out of this, Battinson, as the article calls him. Of course, because Matt Reeves said, look, I'm going to put it out there right now. I don't want you guys to be disappointed. Robert Pattinson's Batman and Bruce Wayne are not in this movie or in this TV show.
Right.
And here he kind of explains why. So he says that because he wants to tell, basically, to summarize this whole paragraph, he says that the movie, the Batman movie, and then the sequels, all the Batman movies are going to be really from the perspective of Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. They want the movies to be from the perspective of the only Batman and not from the perspective of the rogues. And he explains it by saying that, hey, in the past we've seen this where the origin story, like Batman Begins, is really about Batman. But then every movie in the sequel kind of becomes the story of the villain, really, whether
Yeah.
it's Joker or Bane. So what he really wanted was he wants to keep the movies pretty much the same as the first one, where it's Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne and Batman sort of telling their story from their perspective.
Yeah, that's
And
one of the
then
many things I appreciated, most definitely.
yeah. And then he wanted to do the show to let it really focus on that rogues gallery character and then change the points of view. So this show is literally bringing Gotham down to the perspective of the Penguin and what Oz Cobb, or sees the world around him, and how what he's trying to do in the wake of the action, the flooding of the city that Riddler caused. And because it's not like the Penguin is a fan of the Riddler, right? He's like, well, look at what that freak did to the city. Like he said that at one point in the show,
Right.
in the
Yeah.
first
Yeah. Yeah.
episode. So it really goes again. I think from a storytelling standpoint, it makes sense that this is the reason why Batman is not in the show, because the show is about the Penguin. It's the Penguin's perspective. It's what he's up to. The city is too big. I like the fact that they're making Gotham feel like a New York City like size city. It's not like such a small city that Batman is around every corner, right? It's like,
Right.
Penguin could go months without ever running into, maybe even years, depending on if he ever gives Batman a reason to give him a visit. So, and of course, Batman can't fight every fight, and he can't be like involved in mob boss politics. He's not there for that. He's there to take the people down who, I mean, of course, the drops business is still ongoing. Maybe that new shipment will you catch the attention of the Batman in some way, but it seems like the reason behind why Batman is not in this show is because they want to tell the story from the perspective of Oz Cobb and not from the perspective of the Batman.
Good old
And so then,
Cab.
and then when we get to the next movie, is going to be about the Batman again. So now this is the other part, right? This is the part that really intrigued me the most. So this is where Matt Reeves talks about essentially his inspiration for the sequel. And I thought this was very interesting. So stick with me, guys. I'm going to read this to you. Of course, you can go find this article on Esquire, but if you are watching, then let's go through it together. So he talks about, in terms of his inspiration for the sequel, the Batman Part 2, the intense division that is there right now. On one hand, you say it's a thing going on in the United States, and obviously Gotham is an American city, but really it's worldwide. There's just tremendous division, the way that the world gets its information, its news. Everybody's in their own silo, that sense of environment of today where it's just very easy for people to be completely separate and at complete odds. That's definitely one of the things that we're looking at in Gotham. Some of that is just the way that society is, and some of that is intentional. And to the degree that that's intentional and how that fits into the larger picture of what the motivations behind that might be, that's one of the things that we're exploring as well. So to summarize, he's basically hinting at the idea that there's a lot of division in society over, like, whether your political beliefs or religious beliefs, or in
Yes.
general, there's people are polarized, and that creates these bubbles that we live in, where we only reach out for the kind of news that we want to hear, or we only listen to the kind of radio show that we want to listen to, or watch the kind of news that we want to, stuff like that, right? And that
Right.
creates even more division, where we are less and less kind of engaging each other on opposite sides of the aisle. And that creates an opportunity for people to take advantage of that, which I feel like is happening, and it has happened in the real world. And maybe that's what's giving Matt Reeves an opportunity to take some inspiration from. And then whether that turns into the Court of Owls or whoever else. Because in a manner of speaking, that's kind of what the Bane character did too in The Dark Knight Rises, right? And because
Gotham's Reckoning.
exact just class warfare, right? That's what Bane pitched himself as. Even though he was a terrorist who was going to just blow up the city regardless, he put up a front that he's fighting for the people. He's like, I'm giving you the city back to you, the people. Like, in fact, the trigger was held by one of the people who was one of the richest people in Gotham, even though she was Talia al Ghul. So, what do you think about the idea that Matt Reeves is really playing at like this real world inspirations, and then how do you think that can tie into the Court of Owls story? Do you think that means we're getting Court of Owls, or do you think this could be hinting at something else?
I mean, I hope it's Court of Owls because it seems like I like the idea of division. It's just I hope it doesn't get too preachy and too real world because I feel like you're gonna you're gonna lose a lot of people. You're gonna lose a side. If you demonize one side and you prop the other one on a pedestal, you're gonna lose a side and you're gonna lose half your demographic. So you can't go too far into real world stuff. You can, yeah, inspiration is fine, but just don't go too far because then you're gonna fucking just lose everybody from one side, and that's not good. So I think the best way to really do it is just rich versus poor. Like that's like because all the people that are seeing these
I mean, that's
movies
what the
are
Penguin is also kind of hinting at,
yeah,
right? Like the Penguin sees themselves as
exactly.
part of the people who get their elbow, who use their elbow grease on day to day. They're not just sitting in a mansion making decisions, right? That's He literally says that in the first
And
episode.
I feel like that'll also help with the Batman character. Like he's finally going to be proactive. He's not going to just be fucking emo Batman sitting in his room listening to Nirvana. He's going to actually start to like really realize that like I've seen the corruption. Like I can't just be like a guy beating up punching guys in the face. Got to be that hope, which I know is repetitive at this point, but in terms of this character, let's do that. So I think it's going to be like kind of a rich versus poor thing, but I just hope what I hope they don't do is like, oh look, you know, Bruce Wayne is just a rich guy that beats up poor people because that is still one of the fucking dumbest takes ever, and it still fucking pisses me off to no end because it's not the character.
Yeah.
So I think if they do like again with nuance, with proper nuance, and like having these having like a rich versus poor thing because the most people that are going to see the movies are usually people that are you know not maybe not broke but like poorer to like middle class, and so these are the ones enjoying it. So I think like if you have a rich versus poor and like you're like realizing that like the revolutionizing the like poor fighting back, that kind of thing, like realizing that they have a voice too, I think that'll speak to a lot of people because I feel like from what I've seen of people's like views, the thing that I feel like a lot of people agree on, no matter what side you're on, usually not all the time but usually, is like okay, we can kind of agree that rich people fucking suck. A lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So I think like speaking to that aspect will definitely get again farthest demographic. And then but also like at the same time, don't demonize Bruce Wayne. Don't totally demonize the rich. Like you can to a certain point. It just then you're gonna lose like your backing because it's backed by rich people. So I feel like I would love to, like, for instance, for Colin Farrell's Penguin, like maybe like he's talking up this big game of like a big game of like, people like us, poor guys, people like us. And then when he finally gets that taste of power, it's a tale as old as time, and he becomes one of the people. Like you've become the very thing you sworn to destroy. That is such a classic story, and if they put their own spin on it, I think it could be done really well. So I would like to see that at some point. Um, and I think like doing that and speaking to everybody who's like beneath like the rich, like, kind of looking down upon the peasants kind of thing from the, ivory towers and all that pretentious gobbledygook. But it works. You can make that type of story work. And I feel like if they do that instead of like making a movie about division and then dividing people even more, not a good look. So if you make it about division but try not to divide the audience, that I think would be good. And the way I think the best thing with rich versus poor, but don't demonize Bruce Wayne. That just all I ask. Don't do that to our boy.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
if you go full NC-17, I wouldn't mind seeing like an Eyes Wide Shut Court of Owls orgy. Not gonna lie, that would be really interesting. And I hate Eyes Wide Shut. A fucking terrible movie. But if they do kind of do something that kind of vibe, that would be good. And that's what I mean. Like Court of Owls feeds into the rich versus poor story. Like you could have like the rich, and then part of the Court of Owls thing is the Talons, the brainwashed soldiers of the Court of Owls. They could just be like grabbing like hobos off the street and just like brainwashing them. And they're like, oh, these people are useless to society anyway, so let's just use them for our own gain. That would be a good plot point as well. I don't know if that's like specifically what they
They've
do
almost
in
hinted at
terms
that
of,
in the first movie, because remember they find like they call them drop heads in that abandoned
yeah,
building where they find the
maybe
whole
that's what the
montage
shipment
for the Court of
is.
Owls.
Maybe that could be the new drug. It's like maybe Alberto
Mhm.
Falcone was with like some people that are
Yeah.
connected to this people
Spoilers
that are
for
connected
the
to
first
this people
episode,
that are
but
connected
yes.
to the Court of Owls. But yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
it was in the
Well,
first
okay.
5 minutes. I'm not spoiling
It's
much.
yes. That's yes. It's part of the setup. But look, guys, it just to me it just speaks the idea of how I feel like this is Matt Reeves' way of bringing the Court of Owls into the mix. And it makes sense. Like he's leaning into real life, events as inspiration. And so far that's worked for him. So he seems to be very good at adapting that into his stories, and I'm looking forward to it. The Batman 2 does start filming next year. It looks like the script is not done, but I mean, who knows? Maybe it will never be done. I mean, no script is ever technically done. Maybe that's what Matt Reeves means by the script is not done. But yeah, we're gonna get this movie in 2026. Until then, we have the Penguin, and I can't wait to see where Matt Reeves takes this world. Now let's jump over to another story, which is more on the DCU side of things. This
Mhm.
is a rumor, or it's actually a report that really doesn't stay a ton because, like, Production Weekly, if you guys remember, a while ago we got a report from Production Weekly, because they basically list every show or movie that is in some stage of production and like a guide that people can go and say like, oh, this is being made now. This is as a resource for people working in the industry. Are they 100% accurate? Not necessarily. Are they like as bad as IMDb? No, they're sort of in between. So I wouldn't say they're definitive, but recently, because I remember this came up when the Lantern show was supposedly in pre-production, and later on, a lot of it, turned out to be true because they had hired the writers, and now they're looking to cast the roles. But if you can see here on the image, these are the current list of projects that are in pre-production according to Production Weekly, and amongst them, you see Avengers Doomsday, you see Black Dagger Brotherhood, Blood Bank, The Boys, Season 5. You have Clayface, and of course, you have The Authority. So, The
Mhm.
Authority, we know, is officially announced as a movie in the DCU. Clayface, on the other hand, we did not know was actually a thing. Do you think that's
Right.
one of those secret projects? Because according to Production Weekly now, it's in pre-production, which means they might have writers attached and they might be looking to go casting soon. And according to the person reporting this, we
Yes.
should expect developments soon. What do you think about that?
Um, I'm not gonna believe anything right now because they also said Booster Gold was filming in July, and that was James Gunn was like,
There's no way.
no.
Yeah.
So these are the same guys who did this. So I don't believe any of this. However, if I do say so, that kind of confirms the theory that the Authority has had a writer and possibly a director for quite a while. We just haven't known. If this is true, I don't think it is. Like straight up, I don't think any of this is true. I don't think any of this has anything to do with anything. So, in terms of that aspect, I don't believe it, but in terms of theorizing, I think the Authority has had a writer and a director for a while. They just didn't want to reveal it for whatever reason. Maybe it spoils something. Maybe they just don't want to blow their load all at once. Whatever. So I think I will say I think I still agree with that they've had their writer and director for a while. Same guy, different guy, girl, whatever. So that there's that. Clayface is the interesting bit because as we remember, a couple years ago, Mike Flanagan went to DC about an Elseworld story about Clayface. And he's like, hey, I got this really fucking great idea. And Warner Brothers, being the almighty dumbasses that they are, were like, no. So he left. Now, that brings us to a couple months ago, where at the Paris Olympic Games, we saw Kumail Nanjiani, his wife, and then also Mike Flanagan and his wife, Kate Siegel, buddy with Peter Safran. Now, does that mean anything? Probably not. But this does feed into maybe the theory that Mike Flanagan, whilst he's working on the Dark Tower Amazon show, which I am so fucking stoked for. And while I think Life of Chuck is filmed. I think they're in post-production right now, if I remember correctly. But in between all these other projects, he maybe went back to Warner Brothers. He saw the change in leadership, and he's like, hey, James Gunn and Peter Safran, I have this really fucking awesome idea about Clayface. We can do a lot of different things with that. We can make him the clay monster. We can make him the serial killer and make it more like Phantom of the Opera. I'm pretty awesome. All of my projects fucking slap. So, like, hey. And they're like, you know what, Mike Flanagan? You're right. You're a fucking king of horror right now, and we would be complete dumbasses to have you get away from our grip. So I know you have your little deal with Amazon right now. However, maybe you can like give us an outline, give us a pitch, give us a little something, and we'll, think about it. And maybe that little think about it became something more. And they're like, you know what, Mike Flanagan, we're just hounding for great shit right now, building our universe, building everything else. We got Joker, we got a Joker sequel, we got epic crime saga. Let's throw in another Elseworld story. Why the fuck not? So you know what? We'll take your Clayface idea, and we're gonna fucking do it. So whenever you're free, because we know you're working on your Stephen King adaptations right now, but whenever you're free, come walk on the wild side with us, and you could finally do your Clayface movie. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that maybe Mike Flanagan saw that James Gunn is not a total moron, and he's like, guys, I got this fucking great idea. I'm Mike motherfucking Flanagan. I fucking slap. I print fucking money. So you know what? I got this fucking baller idea. Your Joker movie made $1 billion. Maybe with this Clayface movie, I can make him a household name and make you another $1 billion. Because I'm Mike Flanagan. That's what I fucking do. Mint quality projects, whether they're Stephen King or not. So you know what? Here. And maybe if this is correct, I don't think it is, but if it is, then you know what? I think Mike Flanagan might be finally getting his Clayface movie off the ground. I don't think think this is true. But the deep Mike Flanagan fan inside me would be really stoked if that is the case. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying there's been rumors of that for a long time, right? And that's why I agree with you. And also, it would make a lot more sense to do a Clayface if you're going to go the fantastical route and do it in the DCU rather than do a grounded version in what would be, part of the Matt Reeves Batman universe. Because of course we have the version that's a little more like, actor whose face, gets defaced because of an incident, or I guess I don't know if deface is the right word, but like essentially his face gets messed up because of an accident, and then he becomes Clayface as a means to regain his appearance. And that would be the way you adapt it in the Matt Reeves version. But I imagine a lot of people want to just see the more fantastical iteration of the character, and that could be done in the DCU. And I really think that now it's starting to make sense why Mike Flanagan and Peter Safran were hanging out at the Paris Olympics, right? By the way, guys, like and subscribe. If you haven't already, hit that like button. You're watching. It just takes a one like, and it really helps us out. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. You know, we are here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. But John, you can also look at the idea of the authority. Do you think the authorities director is somebody that we are already aware of who's involved with the DCU, their core writing room, or do you think it's an unknown candidate that's a bit more of a left field, person who's we haven't really heard of being engaged with DC at all? And then also the writer, who could be the writer? Like, do you think it's another one of those things where Anna Noguera, somebody who's already written or is in the process of writing her second movie for this franchise? Do you think Christina Hodson, like who's done the Birds of Prey movie, she did she did one of the Shazam movies, I believe, or the Flash.
No,
She's
she did
done
The
like 4 or
Flash.
5. Yeah,
She
she's
wrote
done
2
several.
terrible DC movies. James Gunn's like, get her on here.
I'm just saying, who do you think is the writer? Who would you pick as a writer and a potential director? Do you think there's known
I
names, or
have a
would there be
theory time.
surprises?
Going back to what we were saying a couple days ago,
Yeah,
Drew Goddard was considered as like, oh, he's working on a DC project, and the authority
yeah,
fits for him. He's worked on ensembles before. Cabin in the
yes,
Woods and Bad Times at the El Royale was both ensembles,
right.
and he works well
Did
with
he
like kind
direct
of
the
like.
X-Men First Class? Was that him, or was that Brian
No,
Singer?
that was Matthew Vaughn.
Matthew Vaughn.
Drew
Okay.
Goddard did the Martian. He wrote The Martian. He wrote and directed. He co-wrote and directed Cabin in the Woods, Bad Times at the El Royale, and then a couple other projects as well that I'm fortunately like blanking on right now. But I think that would fit for him because at the Authority, I feel like they're gonna kind of do like a Boys Watchmen kind of vibe, where it's like gonna be like a darkly humorous kind of thing, and I feel like that fits into Drew Goddard. Like The Martian is one of those movies that like kind of bleeds into like black comedy, dramedy, drama type of vibes. And so I feel like that would really work for the Authority. And I feel like we did talk about that. I think somebody brought that up in the chat. I forget who. I mean, you guys are constantly talking, and we got so many
We got
regulars
Watcher
here
in the
that
chat. Maybe
you
it was
know,
Josh Watcher, McCat,
Josh
whoever. You're
Watcher.
sorry, a
You know,
trainer.
it could have been any of you
Yeah.
guys, and I
Maybe
think
Lenny
that
brought it up, or Lex.
if
We've got a ton of you guys. Fabian,
Drew Goddard
AJ.
is rumored to be working on a project, it
Yeah.
would make sense if it was the Authority because he is one of the blueprint artists for the DCU. So it makes sense that James Gunn's like, okay, you can have something. You're exceptionally talented.
Yeah.
So here you go. And so I think it would make sense, like if if this is true, again, I don't think it is. I'm hoping it's true because I would love to see like more announcements, especially if my boy Mike Flanagan is finally getting his Clayface movie off the ground. So if this is true, I think just Drew Goddard, I feel like makes the most sense. He fits. There was the rumor.
Yeah.
I feel like that fits very much.
It's
so.
exciting, right? Like if you get all of a sudden Drew Goddard doing an Authority movie, and then you get Mike Flanagan on Clayface, like, okay, those are top tier directors. Like they will do a good job. Yeah. By the way, the Watcher continuing to talk about how they are probably going to tie Penguin Oswald Cobblepot or Oz Cobb into the Court of Owls, and then he might be a Talon, and there's some
Yes, we
comic
did
book
see that.
precedents for that. Which the Watcher, we have been getting into that all over that. We talked about it the other day, and it's just it's amazing how that would tie it all together. Goddard the Watcher saying maybe Goddard does Huntress, but he could definitely I mean that could be another good project. I mean that might be in the works. I would be excited to see both of those names, both Mike Flanagan and Drew Goddard, to get into the new DCU. Those would be fantastic picks. You guys let us know in the comments who you think would be a good pick for either the Authority movie or Clayface. Do you really think that in the coming weeks we're going to get some news on that, and maybe it does turn out to be true that these two projects are in pre-production? We just haven't heard about it yet. Maybe James Gunn just hasn't mentioned anything because they're still trying to dot their I's and cross their T's. So yes, the Authority, hopefully it is more nuanced. I believe it will be more nuanced.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, let us know in the comments what you think. Would you like to see a Clayface movie? Would you like to see the Authority movie be directed by somebody like a Drew Goddard? Or do you think Mike Flanagan has a better project, maybe like a Huntress or something else entirely, if not Clayface. Now we gotta like move on and go back to the world of Superman. These are the couple of the quick hits to end the show today.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about Superman and Lois. Superman and Lois is a show that has been on the air for a few years. Now it's time for its final season. It's going to make its final bow, and it's going to start releasing episodes on October 7th with a 2-hour premiere. John, the final season is almost here. How excited are you about this? They recently put out like a bit of a commercial/teaser trailer for this. Are you excited to see what it is going to look like? Clearly, they're hinting at the idea that Superman isn't quite around anymore. And then, we're going to hopefully get to find out the effect that that has on the world at large. What are your feelings? What are your thoughts? What are your expectations for this show and its final season?
I have a feeling that it's gonna bring a lot of just tie up all the threads, give us a good final villain, like really building up Lex Luthor. I think that was a great way. Don't use him at at the forefront, use him at the end. I think that really makes sense. Like have him like Lex Luthor finally succeed in killing Superman. And I think it would be really awesome if like Doomsday doesn't die and like he dies fighting him, but Doomsday goes off and because I think somebody mentioned that in the trailer, like, yeah, Doomsday's still there. Fuck it, he's dead. Superman's dead. Let's celebrate. So I think and then there's going to be like a lot of things around like death and life and grief and how people handle grief. And I think I'm looking forward to what this has in mind. I'm curious about the flashbacks because I feel like there's most definitely flashbacks. So I don't mind Doomsday. I mean, yeah, Doomsday look a little cheap there, but you know what? It's TV. You can't blame him too hard. But he looks good, and I look forward to like the ideas and themes that they'll really go into here. And I don't know if I'm on the fence of like how they'll do. I don't know if they'll keep Superman dead or he'll come back and we're gonna get like a big triumphant return for Superman. So I think I wouldn't mind either, but I'm curious with how like the narrative will go. It's a nice like succinct 10 episodes, so I feel like we're getting, I just hope like on the one hand, like with the series regulars becoming guests because they couldn't like afford the cast or something. And I just hope they get like all the plot threads like done, like the Cushing, Kyle Cushing and the Langs, even though I fucking hate the Langs and like all of that. I hope it's like works and is proper and we have
Yeah.
some like greater like aspects in terms
Yeah.
of these characters, like
By the way, Ray J,
more
you should
philosophical stuff as
totally
well.
watch the show. Um, and they don't have a Martha moment in this, Josh. But yes, John, I do hope that they get the right payoffs for everything, all the character stories and everything that they've set up already. By the way, the Watcher has a couple of ideas for potential characters that Duke Goddard could take on, even if he's not doing the Authority, which I thought there were some good ideas there. Questioner, Manhunter. We have heard both of those characters at some point or another rumored to be in the new DCU. Would love to see that. That would be perfect. But yeah, Josh with a good question. John, let me pitch this to you here. So Josh asking about, the both Superman and Lois, be the official end to the CW era of DC. It's just been it has been a crazy ride. I mean, there have been
Yeah,
good times and
mostly
bad.
terrible.
And yeah,
Not a wild crazy ride in a good way, but like,
I had fun with it. There
it
were good
exists.
moments,
But like it's just like the first 2 seasons of Arrow were good. The first 1.5 seasons of The Flash were good. Seasons like 2 and 3 of Legends of Tomorrow were good. Season 1 of Supergirl was fine. And then Naomi existed, and then Superman and Lois was just fucking Kino from the day one. And then like that was like this is like has been the only show so far. Hopefully they don't shit the bed. That's been like from beginning to end a great fucking show. So, and
I've
I mean
really enjoyed it.
Supergirl,
Yeah.
if it or sorry, it's not Supergirl, Stargirl, if that counts. Like it originally started on DC Universe. Remember DC Universe? Good times.
That
Um,
lasted all of 6 months?
yeah. So I think that, if that counts, I would say, yeah, throw that in there. Throw it in there. Because that was a great show from beginning to end, but it didn't start off at CW, so I don't know if it counted. But anyway, Superman and Lois started out on CW, ended on CW. So this is gonna be the last of it. This is gonna be the final Arrowverse show, and it was fucking damn good. Everybody brought their A game. They're like Mark Guggenheim,
Even
Greg
Diggle showed up.
Berlanti, get the fuck away from my set. We're building something of quality here. We don't want your bullshit in here. So that's what I think
Yeah.
happened.
No,
So
I'm really looking forward to this show coming to a close, and they've got a lot of story threads to pay off, and it just looks like whether it's Lex Luthor, Doomsday, Superman, Lois Lane, the whole family, how it all plays together. I'm really excited for that. I just want to see more, of those threads be paid off. And again, it's the first time we've seen like Superman as a family together, so I really love that.
I don't have friends. I got family.
I did that to myself. But Lucario has a really good question, John. This is going to be one of the comments that I wanted to, hit up before we talk about our last story of the day. Do you think we're going to get some information regarding the DCU at New York Comic Con? I know that James Gunn is bringing a panel to talk about the Creature Commando
Commandos.
show.
Yeah.
But do you think there's going to be any more than just Creature Commandos talk at that panel?
I think we're gonna get some focus on. I don't know how much of. Well, I mean, Penguin is going to be knee deep. Joker Folie will already be out. Superman and Lois will be a couple
It's October
episodes in.
19th. So yeah, the Penguin will be knee deep, like you said. October 4th is when the Joker Folie releases. So October 19th is after all of that stuff, and it's after Superman Lois starts airing on October 7th, and you're getting at that point close to where Creature Commandos comes out on December 5th, I believe it is, right? So
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
But no, yeah, I think so we could be getting like maybe a little bit in regards to like that. I think I think we're gonna be getting like little teases. I feel like it's mainly gonna be Creature Commandos, maybe a little bit of Superman stuff, but not a lot. Maybe a little bit of like Peacemaker, probably not a ton. I think they're gonna just kind of double down on Creature Commandos. If we get something else, that would be a very nice surprise, and I wouldn't mind it. I just think they're just gonna kind of they're just gonna ride the high of Creature Commandos to really build up the start of the DCU. Not really the start, but like the start. So
yeah, I mean, it's also one of those things where James Gunn has mentioned that both of them are, two stories at the beginning of this DCU. They're equal entry points. They're not. It's not like you have to watch one to appreciate the other. It's not that one means many more than the other. Obviously, Superman as a movie is going to be a bigger property than Creature Commandos, an animated show on a streaming service, but you can watch both and be equally satisfied, and they're both going to give you entry points into this world. They're both going to showcase characters. In fact, Rick Flag Sr. is going to be featured in both projects. So, you'll just get an introduction to him in Creature Commandos, and then you'll know who he is when he pops up in Superman. So, yeah, I think, according to the Watchers, Gunn may dangle some carrots, maybe a little tease of something. And I feel like, yeah, he might be a little purposefully vague, but yeah, I mean, they will answer fan questions, and I'm sure he's going to get asked about things, and then he's going to have to like dodge his way through things. Yeah, so and Josh is like, I work at DC Studios, bro. Gun confirmed. Anyway, yeah. Well, yeah. He said my source told me that Chris Pratt has been casted as Booster Gold. Thank you for your sarcasm. Trust me, bro. But yeah, I do believe we're gonna get some hints at other projects. I don't think we're gonna get anything concrete. I am all for being surprised, and all of a sudden we get like a whole slate reveal, but I'm not expecting that. I really think they're going to focus on Creature Commandos, and that's what they're there for. And while they're at it, if they give us hints at something new and something else beyond it, then that's great. I'm all for it. Now, John, before we finish up, we do have one other thing to mention, and this is Batman related. We seem to be bouncing back and forth between Superman and Batman news today, so we're gonna end on Batman related news here. It's 85 years since Batman as a character, came to be. Batman just became the first comic book character to get his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And now for the 85th, the celebration of 85 years of Batman, we're getting to see AMC. So if you live near an AMC, if you have an AMC theater near you, they're playing the 89 Michael Keaton Batman, The Mask of the Phantasm, which is I think one of the animated movies, as well as getting Batman Forever, which is of course the Val Kilmer Batman that introduced us to the Chris O'Donnell version of Robin. We had Nicole Kidman in there, who she did it for the kiss. She didn't do it for the paycheck. She did that movie for getting to kiss Val Kilmer. And of course, you had Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey, two opposites in the same film. So 3 iconic Batman movies are now playing at AMC.
It's weird how they don't have Batman Returns, but they have Batman Mask of the
Forever.
Phantasm.
Yeah, it's interesting, but
weird choice, but like sure, maybe there's some weird rights things with Batman Returns. I don't know, but
it's also maybe these are 3 very distinct versions. Even though the Batman Forever character is meant to be the same Batman as Batman 1989, it feels distinctly different in terms of how the tone of the movie and the characters that you see in there. So I feel like these are 3 iconic iterations of the character, and they're all throwbacks to many of us in different ways. It's clearly leaning on the nostalgia value. I'm looking forward to, if of these 3 films, would you want to see all 3 of them, or are you interested in
I'd see Batman
seeing
Forever
one in particular?
I think I'd see Batman Forever. Mask of the Phantasm is very good, but it's a little bit overrated, and Batman 89 is just so there's that as well.
Yeah. Yep. By the way, the Watcher's saying Creature Commanders is his most anticipated project, believe it or not. Then Superman, then Paradise Lost. I think those are good picks. Lucerio saying, what if they announce their Lanterns cast in New York City Comic Con? I don't think they will. I don't think they will do that. I mean, if they do, yeah, we'll be surprised, and I'll be happily surprised, but I don't think that's going to happen. I imagine they're going to let the creators of the show sort of do their thing and not rush the process. The Watcher saying, I hope Gunn gives us an update on that potential animated Wonder Woman series rather than it's Elseworld or DCU. So that Gunn mentioned, oh yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't mind that. I mean, but the chances are he's not going to bring it up unless somebody asks him about it. And what are the odds somebody's looking for that specific project? I don't think there's that many people looking for an animated Wonder Woman series. And yeah, Josh,
it would make more sense to ask
Forever.
a question about the game because the game is supposed to come out next year. So we'll see about that.
Right. But here's the thing. I don't think James Gunn is the person to ask about that. Like he's not, I mean, he might know something about it, but probably surface level information. He's not there every day working on the game. He's working on Peacemaker. He's working on Superman. He's focused on, the DCU. And of course, I mean, he's keeping an eye on the Batman epic crime saga and the Joker movies. But yeah, I mean, hey, it's the 85 years of Batman, and AMC is commemorating that with giving you 3 classic Batman movies, animated and live action. Go check them out at AMC near you. We're not sponsored by AMC, but we would love to be if AMC is interested. And with that, John, that brings us to a close for today's show. It's been an amazing week. We got the premiere of the
very
Penguin.
eventful.
A lot of new news. We had the premiere of Superman. We had the premiere of Penguin, Superman, the Christopher Reeve story documentary, that is. There's been so many, rumors and reports, and, Matt Reeves doing a ton of interviews promoting his movies and TV shows. James Gunn, giving us new insight into where the DC was going to be going, and of course, getting to know more about the panel at New York Comic Con. Of course, we'll be here to cover all of that and so much more. As always, guys, keep tuning in. Monday through Friday, we are here on DCU Daily talking about all things DC, whether it's DCU, DCEU, looking ahead to the Elseworld stories like the Batman or Joker Fall You Do. We're going to review all of those projects. And next week on Monday, we're back with more information and more news. We're going to get into another longer, spoiler-full conversation focused on the Penguin episode 1, and then from there we're just gonna dive into any other news that we get from the world of Batman. So until then, as always, guys, keep watching, keep tuning in. John, tell these people what to do.
Like and comment, subscribe. But if you're already subscribed, hit the bell so you know when we go live, because that's pretty cool for you to do. And you know what? We'll give you like an extra little intro to all the people that subscribe and hit the bell, because we want to show our appreciation. We'll give you like a little pat on the head. We'll give you like a little,
There's a lot
compliment.
more. Yes, there's a lot more than that coming. We have a new series of editorials coming up, so you guys can watch. I think one of the ones we're going to be doing is, did Martha kill the DCEU? We also have some ideas for how James Gunn can make Superman more relatable in a way that hasn't been done before. Maybe Crypto could be a part of that story. We know Crypto is going to be in the movie. We talked about that this week. That was one of the new news items. So guys, there's so much more to discuss. I'm sure there'll be a lot more that we'll dive into next week on the show. Until then, as always, have a great weekend. Go watch something DC related and come back and talk to us about it on Monday. And have a great weekend. We'll see you next time on another episode of DCU Daily.
Goodbye.